Okay, so we're gonna jump right in, and I will ask you, what is your favorite sports verse or a verse that's been really impactful during your time in athletics, in college softball, in USA softball? Yeah, I don't know. You can take it where you wish there.
Yeah, so sports wise, I feel like I have like a sports and life one, which shouldn't be different, but like sports, I the first thing that came to mind was like the joy of the Lord is my strength. And I think and that's Nehemiah 8:10, but I just think about like it's so easy to feel pressure and just kind of, going through all the levels of softball and sports in general. It's just like there's so much pressure. And I think when I can draw on the peace and the joy that the Lord gives me, like I have a different kind of strength that, I guess you could say like you tap into and just a freedom with that. And so I would say that's helped me a lot. And then in life, just like Matthew 6:33, which is seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. I can get very detail oriented and get caught up in a lot of different things, but it just really simplifies it to be like, okay, just seek first the kingdom of God. And then like all the things that I might be worried about, kind of let the Lord take control and like put those in order. So
That's so true. That's good. I like those. I like how they play together too, and like the joy of the Lord is our strength. And I think a lot of people in like on my teams and just in general athletes like struggle to play with joy, especially when they get too focused on like the details and playing time and pleasing coaches, pleasing themselves, pleasing teammates. But like both of those playing together and that playing for joy, playing for the Lord, like it automatically unlocks a whole new level of like fun with the sport, which
exactly.
is just
Mhm.
like it's so much better to play when you're having fun and just like having a good time out there.
100%. Yeah. And I feel like even I coach young girls now too. And like seeing them, like why you start playing is because you just have fun. And then like you can see the pressure start to weigh. And then it just gets more and more and more. And it's like, I feel like I sort of rediscovered like this joy of the game, honestly, like later, like college and like in my pro career. Like,
Mhm.
so it's just weird how like it comes full circle. It's like you have fun and then it's like you do these pressures and then you like, okay, let's get back to our roots. Like,
It's so
and that
true.
really is truly like accessible for us as Christ followers. Like our whole career doesn't have to be, that way. So,
It's so true. I was just talking to someone actually that like why that fun kind of goes away for a little bit, and I think it could be external. Like there's things
yes.
with coaches, like the more pressure it gets, the more I guess external factors can play into it. But I think it's a good point that when you get older, it's almost like I think it was the same for me. I had so much more fun in college, like playing my sport than I did, I think when I was in like the club years of which is funny because you'd think like less pressure, maybe it's just all for fun and games. But sometimes when you're just like at the peak of where you are and you're
Mhm.
representing something bigger than yourself and you're playing for something bigger than yourself, then it's like all of that pressure somehow surmounts to like this like huge just big thing of fun. Um
Yes. I love it.
also, yeah, and I'm sure you get that because going to Olympics and playing pro, and I know the joy just like shined through for you. So I'm sure we'll talk about that. But um okay, it's actually funny. I was reading the Get to Know Ali section on like the Team USA website, and every single one of your answers, like literally everyone had to like point back to Jesus. Like, and so your personal motto, you probably know this, but was live my life all for the glory of God. Favorite music is Christian music that is life-giving and filled with a purpose and a mission. I was like, yes, love that. And then one is like, if you weren't playing softball, what would you do? And you like open up a cute coffee shop with a Bible study and a prayer room. I was like, I love how like this is a very just like secular, like not a Christian platform. And you're like, nope, I'm gonna like however I can,
Mm.
I'm gonna like tie it back to God and point people back to God. Um, so that was cool. That was like a cool thing to know about you. And so I'd like to go back to like a little bit of the beginning and just hear about how you got into softball, if you'd like to share that, or how you got to do UW, because I know you played there. And then how that kind of led up to your pro career and your time at in Tokyo, right?
Yes. Yeah. So my career, I started playing softball when I was 7. Um, and then I just played rec ball for a couple years. And then honestly, like I was pretty athletic, so I got into competitive softball like pretty soon. Like I think I was 9. And since then, like since I turned 12, I was playing multiple sports up until I was 12. And that's when I started specializing in softball, which is like pretty young, you know? And so, yeah, I just played softball from 12 to 18. I played on like a couple travel ball teams and was just always um, trying to just get better and have fun. I think eighth grade was the first time like you know like we talked about you're just playing to have fun, and then eighth grade was the first time someone was like, oh, you're pretty good. Like they started putting the label on like good and not good, and that was the first time I was like, oh, you can be good, or like I don't know why that was a
Yeah, yeah.
significant
Yeah.
moment in my life. I was like, okay, well, I want to be good, like let's
Yeah.
make this, like whatever this level is. And then that's when high school, so then that was eighth grade. High school is when recruiting kind of started. It's pretty early for softball, at
Yeah.
least at the time. There were some freshmen that were committing to colleges verbally. So my sophomore year comes around. I think I'm kind of behind because I want to be the best, you know, and there are freshmen that are committing. So I, it was fall of my sophomore year and I got a couple offers from schools locally. And then one was the top two were like Oregon State and Washington that were like significant offers. I was probably getting more. But I committed to Washington sophomore year fall. And so then just finished out my high school career, you know, kind of waiting, like just waiting to go to college. It felt like sometimes. So yeah, signed my senior year and then played 4 years at Washington where I started as a shortstop all 4 years. And we made it to the World Series my senior year, which was like a highlight. The top 8 teams go to that. And that's like the goal. That's what you want. That's what you
Yeah,
see on
that's huge.
TV. You want to win a national championship. So we did that my senior year. We ended up getting third. So we didn't win, but that
Wow.
was like a really amazing experience. And then my first year on Team USA was my junior year of college. So I didn't really know what like that I would ever be playing for our country until I got the opportunity my junior year. So then that kind of shifted things post college. I was like, okay, am I going to continue to play?
Mm.
So I got drafted to play in the pro league at the time. So I did that when I graduated, and then also continued to play for Team USA. And then in that next year, I got an opportunity to play actually overseas in Japan. So for 2 years post college, I played on a professional team in Japan, which
Wow.
was really cool.
Do you
Yeah,
speak Japanese? Did you learn it?
and I learned it a little. So actually, like I'm a quarter Japanese. Nobody would ever
Oh,
guess. My
wow.
dad's
Okay.
half Japanese. We didn't grow up like speaking it. I grew up white. But, anyway, so it was really cool. Yeah, I learned some of the language and definitely not fluent, but you know, it's a cool language. And so cool culture, very opposite of America. So it was a culture shock. I was like 23 years old, waking up. I remember I woke up the next morning, like I flew there, and then I woke up the next morning. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing
I
here?
just did this. Wow.
I was like, am I in a dream? Like in a bad way, almost like it's a really
Yeah.
cool opportunity, but like I'm like, yeah, that
Yeah.
was
Wait, and sorry to interrupt like your story, but how did your faith play a role in that? I don't know if that was a part of you from a young age, or skipping to the part where you went to Japan. I would assume that that was a really big decision that you probably had to
yeah.
weigh about and like bring God into if you're a believer at that point.
Yeah, I think it's easy. I mean, I guess for any of us, it's easy to just like want to stay with what's comfortable. So like I finished college, I was like, I'm gonna stay in Seattle because I went to the University of Washington, and like I was helping them the softball program to some extent. And I was just like coaching and giving lessons on the side. And it was like, okay, this is safe.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like, I was like, Japan, like moving across the country, or I mean, sorry, not across the country, across the world.
Further.
Yeah, I was like, there was fear for sure. And I remember I was like, I just need to pray about it. And I just kept getting confirmation, like, go, go, like, this is an amazing opportunity. And I was sort of thinking of it as like, yeah, like, basically, there's 12 teams in Japan and only two foreigners per team.
Wow.
So 24 people in the whole world that aren't from Japan get to do this. So I was seeing it as like, wow, Ali,
Wow.
you need to take this as an opportunity. But long story short, once I got out there, it was such a culture shock
Yeah.
that God worked in my heart. I feel like God took me there to isolate me, not like in a bad way, but like I learned to hear his voice. I learned to depend on him because I was like, everything was so different. It was out of my comfort zone
Yeah.
that I had to rely on his strength. And softball was different, culture was different, teammates were different. It was just, I was so young. And so, yeah, that was a big part of my faith journey too, was playing softball in Japan and just
Yeah.
like what he did during my time there and all of that.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, and then Olympics happened. So I finished there in 2019. So then the Olympics were 2020, but then COVID.
Okay.
Then we're like, oh, I'm an Olympian, but am I? And so then they reinstated it or, said we're gonna
Yeah.
have it in 2021 because that was a big thing. They're like, we don't know if the Olympics are still gonna be a thing. So yeah, that's when the Olympics happened in 2021. And then since then, I played professionally a couple years up until 2023. And then this year was the first year I was like, I'm going to take a year off and not play. And so
Wow.
I didn't play this year. Um, so yeah, it's crazy. Like 7 years old to I'm 29 now. Like, you just never know
Yeah.
if you're going to keep playing or not. And
If
uh,
you were to talk to like your 7-year-old self, do you think you would have been surprised at that young to be like, you're still playing the sport, or did you just love it that much? You're like, oh, I could see myself doing this still.
yes, I've always been like, if there's a ball involved, like, or like at recess, like all the girls maybe were like, I don't know what they do, like jump rope or
Yeah.
I don't know, or like just like talking over there on the playground. Like I was always like, where's the ball? And then it would always happen to be with the boys. And I was
Yeah.
like, dang it, but like,
Gotta go play, I guess.
so yeah, I just always like was drawn to that, like sports and things like that. So I definitely could see it. But if you would have told me that I would be an Olympian or like professional athlete and like all the opportunities I've had, I think I'd be like, no way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's so cool. Did you grow up in like a Christian household? How did your faith become to where it is now?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I didn't. I think my mom so my parents are divorced.
Mhm.
So there's a little differences in belief. Like my dad grew up going to Catholic school and things like that. And then my mom had a little bit of a Christian background, but we never like, it was never like a for sure practiced type
Right.
thing, but I was like aware of some faith. And my mom would take us to church sometimes. So that was my like awareness of kind of God. And it wasn't until like my junior year of high school, I kind of obviously kind of knew who God was because of going to church before, but it was like I was more mature and
Mhm.
was going through some harder things. Like had my first boyfriend and it like we had broken up and then I hurt my knee. So I partially tore my PCL. So like softball was taken away from me. So I had this like love relationship that was taken out of me. And like at the time, it felt like my
Right.
identity was lost. Like I was like, I'm dead. Like I don't know. It was like this feeling I'll never forget. And then softball was taken away from me as well. And then just the normal stresses of like, yeah, so I was committed to play in college, but I'm like, oh, am I gonna be ready? Like
Yeah.
all of those things, and then just family things. And I just felt like everything was kind of falling apart.
Mm.
And that's when I like, for some reason, there's just something in me, like I'll say God put in my heart or the plants were seeded that were just like God, And there was this family friend that I had that her mom was a strong Christian, and I just looked up to her a lot. And they got me a Bible and a devotional. I still remember it's like called the God Girl Bible and devotional.
That's
I
awesome.
probably have it somewhere, but I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, from there, like I just started going to church nearby. Like my mom lived really close to where I could even just walk and found myself just like, I need a safe place. And that became my safe place.
Yeah.
And so that's where my relationship with the Lord started. I was just like, they have you raise your hand if you want to give your life. And I was like, this is my time. And so I would say, yeah, junior year when I was 16. So it was
Yeah.
really new for me, like learning. And at first it was like I just want to learn how to be a Christian. Like, what rules do I need to follow? And then
Yeah.
soon learned it's like so much more about relationship and knowing him. And so,
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's cool. I mean, I think a lot of people, I feel like our audience and just in general, like athletes, they grow up going to church and they grow up in Christian households if they're so fortunate. And then they kind of like grow up playing their sport too. So it's like God and sport have been intertwined since the beginning. But with you, it's like sport first for a good 10 years-ish, like maybe more. And then it was like, oh, there's this God out there who loves me and like has this whole plan for me. And so I'm curious, like, was there a different, like, did you start playing your sport or approaching sport differently after you like found out about God and like really took that seriously? I don't know if you'd even like remember what that was like for you, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, no, yeah, I think about that, yeah, a lot because it's like people like girls or just, athletes have this foundation maybe of like their identity being solid, like
Mhm.
outside of their sport, at least somewhat if you grew up in the
Mhm.
church. But yeah, for me, like I was driven, like my dad was very big on like success. Like that's why he's like, you're gonna get a scholarship, like you're gonna succeed, make money, like that's kind of like the mindset, I guess, of the world.
Yeah.
And so that did shift. And I think the biggest thing of me in me was just I had so much peace after that. Like I realized I have like a peace that like I didn't have before and like a confidence that I didn't have before. And I wasn't so much felt like in control of my own destiny anymore. It was like now I've surrendered it and uh
Wow.
like allowing God to kind of take control. And that in turn made me feel a lot of peace.
Wow.
So obviously, yeah, I think a byproduct of following the Lord is the fruit of it, and peace is one of those things. And so if I can remember like a shift, that's what it was. And which allows you, I think, when you have this peace in your life in general, then you can play from that place of peace.
Yeah.
And you're just, yeah, there's just more ease. And so I do remember that. And it doesn't come without struggle. It wasn't like, oh, I was peaceful all the time, 24/7. But it was like when push came to shove, like I surrender it to the Lord, which allowed me to just like play in general more free,
Yeah.
um, and not have to be worried about results and things like that as much.
Yeah. That's one of
Yeah,
the coolest feelings ever. I think when you can find that and when you know you're like, oh, I'm just so free right now, like it's just it goes back to the joy thing. You're just so much more joyful and you're having
yeah,
fun. Because
hmm
it's important and it matters, but it's not the end all be all because you know that the Lord has this overarching plan.
exactly.
But okay, well, I was gonna ask you, I don't know, I guess we could go into the Olympics if that's okay with you and just hear a little bit
Yeah,
of that experience because I just know from friends and teammates and things like that can just be very different depending on the person. So I always just like to hear kind of everyone's experience can be different. So but what was interesting about softball, and obviously like you would know this better than I do, but it was in the Olympics from 1996 to 2008, and then it didn't happen from 2012 2016, but then it was in 2020, 2021. And
nice. You did
not,
your research.
yeah, I have it right here. I'm looking at it. And then was in 2024. So I didn't even know that because I guess I just wasn't paying attention. But so in 2020, was that like a goal that you had? You're like, I'm gonna be on this team when you found out it was gonna be there? Or did that kind of sneak up on you?
Yeah, so I mean, like I could say it's only God, but like I fell right in the timeline for
Right.
me to be able to think about it. So 2016 is the year that it's voted for 2020 because they
Oh,
determined
I
it
see.
4 years ahead of time. And
Okay.
2016 was the first year I ever was a part of Team USA. So
Okay.
the my junior year when I found out like I made Team USA in 2016, I also found out it's going to be in the Olympics in 2020. So from 2016, I was like, oh, I want to do this. But
And you're like,
before
were
that,
you in college at that point?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was a junior in college.
Okay. Okay.
And so, I mean, before that, I like dreamed about it, but then I'm
Yeah.
like, yo, what's going on? It's not in the Olympics. So
Where is it?
it's like, yeah, because I was in fourth and eighth grade when I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, 12 and 16, it's not in there. So,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, then that's 2016 was when it kind of started. And then I was definitely, going, surrendering it always.
Right. But it was your
It's
goal.
It was stressful, but like, yeah, because you have to make the team every single year and like
Wow.
you just don't know who's going to come in. So there's always that like, oh, someone could come in and be better and you have to keep your game up. And so, yeah, like I even get stressed thinking about it right
You're like, oh, flashback.
now. Yeah. But, yeah, so it was there from 2016, 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then I saw on your Instagram, I think, a video that you posted, and it was like your team, I think it was your team, doing like a little worship session with like the guitar and stuff. I think it was before your first game in Tokyo.
Yes.
And I was like, that
Yes.
is just like one of the coolest things ever. Like one of the coolest feelings having been a part of something like that and then watching it and sharing it is really cool.
Yeah.
So was like, I'm guessing there were some believers on your team. Like, how did you guys foster that? Was that a big part of like your culture or yeah, just curious about how that
Mhm.
was like for you.
Yeah. So that was like honestly like built up over the 4 years. So a lot of us have been together from 2016 to 2020. And I remember like 2016, I just joined the team. And I think a few of these girls had been on the team the year prior. But anyways, I just saw two of them before one of our games, just in our competitions in 2016, like with their Bibles in the lobby of the hotel. And I was like immediately drawn to that, because like I'm a Christian too. Like they do that, like and so
So funny.
then they started like it was a normal thing. Like there were two of my teammates, Janie Reed and Michelle Moultrie, and they would just announce Bible studies. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, so it was really their boldness that kind of created this atmosphere or environment, whatever you want to call it, on the team.
Mm,
And so there was always a group of us from 2016 to 2020 we would have Bible studies, we would pregame prayer, chapels. And so it became a kind of part of like a core of us and then like grew and grew. And so it was really cool that maybe it was only a core of us from many of those, years consistently. But the night before the Olympics, like everyone, everyone was there. Everyone on our team was there,
wow.
whether necessarily like they're a believer or they were just showing up because they heard the music playing in the hallways. Like everybody came out. One of our coaches even came out and we prayed together at the end. Um, but yeah, it was really cool because we're in that hotel. I think it was like really only us on that floor. And we're like, let's just play in the hallway. And so one of Michelle Moultrie, she started playing the song, and it was a song we'd been singing a lot. And then one by one, like all of our teammates came out, and then we got to pray together before the night before the
So cool.
Olympics, all together. And that, yeah, that was just like a full circle moment. Like even like, okay, this is what it's all about. I remember me, Janie, Aubrey, and Mish, Michelle. Anyways, like four of us are really close. We like went into one of the hotel rooms. We're like, that was so cool. Like we
Yeah.
were like freaking out just like seeing God's faithfulness, like in that small moment of worship and
Yeah.
just what he did. So it's definitely like faith is definitely there's God definitely put like believers on that team, which is really cool.
Totally. And
Yeah.
even like heading into probably the biggest, I don't like one of the biggest things
Yeah.
that you've done in your life, like, um,
Yeah.
and then having that like super grounding, centering, peaceful
Exactly.
time, which isn't just like there's things that you can do like meditation and things like that that are give the same vibe, but like aren't super grounded and like something so foundational, I guess. But like having that and then praying and having this prayer,
Mhm.
to like launch you into that is really cool. And I'm sure probably helped with the nerves, etc.
Nerves, for sure. Yeah. It was
That's
awesome.
awesome. Um, and then I was gonna ask you like, so I'm guessing for softball, like is the Olympics considered like the biggest stage that you can be on, like one of
Yeah.
other than college, I guess outside of
Yes.
college. Okay.
Outside of volunteer.
Okay, okay. So, because I would say that's the same for us, but some sports it's like there's other things. But so you're competing on the biggest stage there is in sport, and like you have tons of viewers, tons of fans. Um, but also you're competing for something bigger than yourself, like you're competing for the Lord. So I'm curious how you went about or approached, or if you even thought about both competing for this like gold medal prize and then also like not competing for that prize and competing like for Christ. Um, and like not the temporary prize, if that makes sense.
Yes. No, that's really good. Like, what is that verse that says like they're competing for the crown, but like
Right.
we have a crown that doesn't fade away. And
Right.
I think that was our heart posture. Like a lot of the girls, or a few of the girls on the team, like we kept trying to remind ourselves, because there was this thing, like I think the last Olympics, they won silver. And so it was like this redemptive, like we're going to be the ones to win gold. And there was just
Right.
like, felt like there was this pressure from like the past. It like hasn't been in the Olympics since 2008.
Mm.
So like we were feeling that, but we also wanted to make sure like we're not worshiping, you like read about
Mm.
all these things in the Bible, like worshiping idols and things like that. And really like I feel like we continually tried to surrender our hearts and set our hearts on like no matter what happens. And so we had this saying, like, even if, because um there's a scripture in Daniel that is like, even if like he didn't get saved or from the fire, I think it
Right. Right.
what is
Yeah.
what it was. He was like, you're still good. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of our saying too. It's like, even if we don't get gold, like you are still good. We will still worship you. Like even if we get silver, even if we get bronze, whatever happens, um, like you're still Lord of all. And so I think that posture was where our hearts were at. And we wanted to like, yeah, please the Lord in that first. And then hopefully that would shine to, whoever was watching as a
Yeah.
byproduct and things like that. And so unfortunately, like we didn't win gold, we won silver.
Mhm.
We were kind of bummed, but we remembered in our hearts what we had said before. It's like, even if we don't get the thing that we want, we're still going to glorify you and give glory to you.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how we carried that posture. And then just realizing like the crowns, the medals, the things of the earth like fade away. But
Mm.
what's remembered are like, those moments where we prayed and together as a team and worshiped before, or we prayed over. There are moments like leading up to the Olympics where we would pray for each other in the dugout, like if someone's feeling anxious before an at bat. And it's just like,
That's so
it's
special.
just like, yeah, those are the moments that build faith, that build things that last, that build things for the kingdom, that draw like things that draw us closer to the Lord, and that will last in eternity. And I think, yeah, those are the things that I'll remember, but also like I think God is pleased with, and
Hmm.
yeah, that we wanted to focus on as well.
Right. I like how you said that God is pleased with, because like all of these medals and trophies, like even making the roster in the first place, like that's something to please the world, which is great, and it's an accomplishment and it is something to be proud
Yeah.
of and I guess show. But it's also God looks at that and he's like, I don't know. I feel like he's looking at it and he's like, that's like, awesome. Like I'm proud of you, but like give me something that like I am pleased with, which is all the intangibles of like
Mhm.
the prayers
Yeah.
and the relationships that are built and like sharing the gospel with teammates and the pregame song, like all those little things that might not have like earthly value, but
Mhm.
like is what God's actually like looking down and applauding and being like, that's so awesome.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then you mentioned a little bit the silver that you guys were bummed. I think it's funny that you said that because a lot of people would be like, that was soul crushing, or like, I'm sure it was worse than just being bummed, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But I guess that was something that you like, I don't know. I feel like you could look at it both ways, being like, oh my gosh, you want a silver medal, like putting all your worth and glory in that, like we just said, or being like putting all your worth in that and being like, oh my gosh, this is the most like crushing thing ever because you didn't get gold. So
Mhm.
in both ways. And it sounds like you didn't really do either of those. You were like, I'm proud of the work that we did. It was an incredible experience, but like my identity is not in this medal for better or for worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I think like I was thinking like it's 20, what, like 4 years, three
Yeah,
years.
that's
Like I'm
true.
able to be like, oh, I'm bummed. Because you don't want to hold on to that. Like, trust it happens the way it happens. But yeah, I think just, you know, maybe that heart posture can seem not competitive, or to the world of like, oh, whatever happens, the Lord will be glorified through it. It's almost like, oh, are you setting yourself up to just like accept less than gold?
Mhm.
But like, we still worked hard and did everything we could to achieve that. And but I do think that setting our hearts before the Lord and not before the gold medal is what makes it okay.
Hmm.
being able to say like, yeah, maybe in the moment we were more than bummed, like really upset, but like now I can just say bummed because I have that perspective. Like
Hmm.
if I truly am saying like, even if, and no matter what happens, like, Lord, you're good, um, then I should be less attached to the outcome, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it was definitely hard in the moment. Yeah, I definitely wasn't feeling a lot of holy things. We were like angry, maybe for a moment forgot about God, like was
No,
just thinking about ourselves and
which makes sense.
what?
I said makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. And then also just the mix of like just being so tired, like the
Yeah.
process of getting there. I remember we were just like, yeah, we were exhausted, but we kept going, kept
Hmm.
working, kept striving. And I think just being able to just, it's over, like almost this like release as well.
Yeah.
It's like a balance of like frustration and release. But yeah, I remember at the end we just like wanted to give glory to God. So like when the camera did come on us, even though it's like very cliche, like we have this thing where we say like for him, and we were just like for him, like to set our hearts to remember like this is about him. The game is the game, it's over now, and that's all we can do.
Right.
So
That's good. That's cool. And now kind of fast forwarding, but I know you do a lot of clinics and things with I want to say just like church because really you do church for like softball players,
yeah,
called Church on the Dirt, which is an
yeah.
awesome title name. But yeah, I mean just to help them grow and like grow and walk their walk with the Lord while also growing in softball, which is really cool. So clearly like, this is something very close to your heart and impactful for you. And so I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit more like what it's meant for you to pour into these younger girls and like why specifically this population. And yeah,
Mhm.
kind of how that grew into what you do now.
Yeah, I think. Well, one thing I realized through this is like how important service is, like, especially when you're like, I don't know who your audience is mostly. Is it like,
Mostly like college athletes, some younger, some older.
okay, well, that's good because it's like you are the one that everyone's looking at. Like,
Right. Yeah.
being at Stanford and stuff, like everybody's looking at you. So you almost get like, oh yeah, I'm this like thing and I'm like
Yeah.
separate. I don't know. Like I felt
Totally. No,
that
yes, yes,
without trying.
yes.
Like I put on my college gear and like I'm cool or
It's
whatever.
so, I was just telling someone I was like wearing like you had have to be careful like where you wear your Stanford gear and it's like that for all these schools. It's like you put it on, you're not trying to brag, but they're like, "Where'd you go to school?" And you're like, "Oh, this,"
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, okay." And you're like, chill, like it's not a big deal. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it definitely I know what you mean.
Yeah, there's like some more moments where you just want to be like normal human. But
Yes, yes,
yeah, and so I think I started getting, especially being a pro Olympian, there's like just
yes,
this mindset that like you are the thing. And
yes,
I wish I would have, I mean, like I guess now, like what I'm finding joy in and is a more balanced of like, yes, I've got to do these really cool things, but I'm no different than these 12-year-olds or these 10-year-olds that,
mm,
like I was once them. And we're all girls, like pursuing the Lord,
yeah,
hopefully, or in pursuing sport. And like there's so many commonalities. And I think it just really humbles you. And so it was just on my heart to start like giving back. And through that, like I've seen the heart of God through it. And yeah, just being able to connect the bridge rather than having a like, I'm up here, you're down there. Like, let's build a community together. Like, it's really special. And so, yeah, I've been doing that through like faith-based clinics, and we'll just kind of run through a practice, but then like have a devotional at the end, and I'll get to pray for the girls and their weeks and what they have going on at school. And I think just why I like that too is because through this journey, like maybe I didn't start off pursuing the Lord.
mm,
It was very serious. Like I said, a lot of pressure. And I think I realized the demands that the girls go through in these competitive sports. And I want to be a safe place for them. Um, as someone who has been there and done that, to say like, like the Lord is with you, or I'm with you. Like you have support kind of
yeah,
through this, and God has a plan for your life, and giving them that peace and opportunity to believe in Jesus, so that they can have that peace and hope for a future, just like I did. And yeah, just a different way, like to be a light
yes,
in
yeah.
that way. and not like make them feel like they're just burdened with pressures and different things like
Yeah.
that all the time. Just like a fun environment. Yeah.
Totally. That's cool. And I like how you're tying two very important things in their lives together. Like, I think it's always faith and then there's sport. And from such a young age, you're like, no, these two things like definitely co can coexist and like can do so in a really impactful way that like sets you up for the rest of your life and you can carry with you through the rest of your life, whether you
Exactly.
like stop playing sport or become the next Olympian or something. Um,
Right. Yeah.
but it's also cool. I was just talking to someone else about this that like a lot of times when you're like in that mentoring role, like with younger people or kids or whatever, it often like comes back and changes you in some ways because
Mhm.
you're
Yeah.
pouring out, but you're also like even with kids, like you're learning things about yourself and you're learning things about God. And so I'm curious if you've seen that in yourself or in your experience and how maybe like pouring out into the community has really just like changed things about you or help you realize like new things
Yeah.
about God.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I feel like the thing that I've learned the most is just like the service
Hmm.
aspect. And then also I think I would just point to their like childlike faith because a lot of a lot of the kids are that I've done the clinics with are like 10 to 12 age. I did do some high school too, but like um yeah, just like we're all kids in the
It's so
kingdom,
cool.
you
Yeah.
know, and like we're all daughters and sons, you know, of God. And so like I learned from them, I think the most just to approach God with that childlike faith, that childlike
Cool.
spirit. And yeah, it's been so cool. I like feel like a little kid out there with them.
Like a
We're all the
fluid
same.
space. That's awesome. No, it's
Yeah.
so cool because I think how we've talked about like the more pressure things build, even the older you get and the higher stage you're placed on, whether it's yourself doing that or like other people kind of placing that on you, you can kind of start to come to God with that, like more burdens, more things, which he doesn't like not like by any means, but it is a treat, I think, to be able to be like, I'm just your kid. Like I'm just your daughter
Yeah.
sitting at your feet and learning
Yes.
from little kids to do that so well and naturally.
Yes, that's so good.
That's cool. Okay,
Amen.
well, Ali, I don't know if there's anything else that's on your heart that you want to share, but I just want to thank you for coming on today and for taking the time for making it work. And yeah, I'm excited for everyone to hear this and to learn a little bit more about your story. And yeah, and hopefully follow the church on the dirt. And if there's any softball players, I hope they can get out there and do that with you.
Of course. Yes. Thanks so much for having me. It's awesome. I love sharing and yeah, just sharing about Jesus. So thanks for having me on.